in a Tesla.
We are?
Yeah.
How do you know?
We're in a Tesla with an 11-year-old.
Oh.
Kelly, you know what? You're a fucking bitch. I am not stupid. I make almost $300,000 a year. How much do you make?
Nothing. I make nothing.
Okay, so you're talking to me
nothing.
like I'm stupid. We make fun of you, how you act.
No, I'm
We're
glad
from
you-
But all you want to do is talk about politics and
I
tell
don't.
us that
I
we're
don't.
stupid. You talk about it all the time. You tell us we're
You're
stupid.
shut the
You just
door,
told me
please.
Okay, you gonna pay him?
You already paid.
No, Mom.
Oh, you
Are you
already
kidding
paid.
me? We're in a Tesla.
We're getting out of a Tesla.
I love it. Someone's got some body odor up in this Tesla.
I don't know. It could be your mom. Who knows?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.
Holy sh**. She was literally retarded.
It's officially been a year since I've accepted an Uber trip, so I think it's safe to say that I've actually quit for good. It always piqued my interest so much. I had super bad social anxiety, and the idea of being locked in my car with strangers for hours a day was like the most insane thought ever. But my curiosity got the best of me. I just couldn't help myself. I had to sign up and see what it was like. And I did so for about 650 trips, which was over 1,000 passengers. The majority of people were actually so great. They were so nice. I had some of the most interesting, engaging, and fun conversations ever. And I learned so much from all these people, as well as just learning a lot about people. But sadly, there were just that small percentage that made it very stressful and pretty difficult. And what I was doing essentially was I would do my day job, which is mostly YouTube, and then Friday and Saturday night, usually from 8 or 9 p.m. until 2 or 3 a.m., I would Uber. There were so many trip requests at this time, so it was just back to back to back. There was always someone in the car, and that meant that it was an incredible tool for my anxiety, talking to people, because, when I was my most anxious, not a chance I would let anyone in my car. I couldn't even say hello to people just on the street. But once I did work on that anxiety a bit, I got to the point where I was very scared, but I was willing to let people in the car. And once I started doing that, I realized just how insane it is, because every 20 minutes, you get another opportunity to practice your first impression and to greet and say hello to someone and to have a conversation. Within less than a year, I met over 1,000 people and had conversations with them all. That's crazy. I don't know what other type of position if you're a cashier, you talk to a lot of people, but you're not talking to them for 20 minutes as you're checking them out. Ubering, you're just in a silent car, with music playing, but you're just in a silent car and you just have conversations. I was doing mostly college campus. People thought it was crazy that I was primarily just Ubering college students from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. every weekend. They were like, how could you do that possibly? But they're basically my peers. I'm in my mid-20s now, and most of the students were in their early 20s. It was super easy to talk to them. 99.9% of the trips on campus, even with drunk students, totally fine. The worst passengers were older, for sure. I would say 1 out of 60 or 70 passengers was annoying. The far majority of them I loved as passengers, and I would, if any of them called me right now, I would happily go pick them up. Now, there were so many memorable trips, but one that I want to mention is I picked up 2 college students from a party, and he says, "Don't drive yet, I want you to turn around and look at me." And I'm like, "Why?" And I turn around, and he says, "Do you know who I am?" And I had a little hint because his first name was on the Uber app. And so I put 2 and 2 together that it was my elementary school classmate, which isn't the weirdest thing on the surface. I'm Ubering guys my age in my hometown, so eventually I'd probably recognize someone, but it was the fact that it was him of all students, because him and I were 2 of the weirdest kids. Like, some classmates actually thought that the entire school year thought I was deaf or mute because I was so quiet and so uninvolved that they were like, there's no way he can speak. But this kid was the total opposite. He was the weird, in his own words, crackhead loud kid, where he was like screaming and a little bit violent, and he would do the like nastiest stuff. And then I was the quiet kid. But because we both didn't quite fit in, we actually got along quite well. And whenever I do think back to school and like, if I could tell certain kids certain things, he was one of the ones I would have said something to, because in maybe 5th grade, I punched him in the face, and I always felt like literally that afternoon that I punched him in the face, I felt bad, and I would still think about it. Over a decade later, I was like, man, I feel bad for punching him in the face. And so it felt like it was meant to be for me to be placed in the same car as him, and I got the opportunity to apologize to that face that I hit. So we talked for a few minutes about like what each of us were up to, and he had actually seen my channel, which was funny because I was a YouTuber in elementary school as well. But into the trip, I was like, okay, do you remember what I did to you that one time in the back of the classroom when you locked me out of my iPad? And he was like, no. So I got to apologize for it, but he didn't remember that it happened, and he said that he probably deserved it. Another trip, I did not know this person. It was a super old woman, but the first name was just Mom. And I was like, okay. So I go and pick her up, and I'm like, Uber for Mom? And she was like, yeah, that's me. Her son had set up the trip for her. He was in California, and I'm in North Carolina. And I was driving her to one of our local hospitals. I got to talk to her for like 15 minutes. She was like quite possibly the epitome of just absolute sweetest old lady you could meet in your entire life. I never ask passengers like where they're going or what they're up to during the day, but if they bring it up, then I'll ask. So she mentioned that I'm taking her to the hospital and like asked if I knew where it was. And I was like, yeah. So we started talking about the hospital. It was actually the hospital I was born at. And she was so grateful that I was taking her. And she was so grateful that her son got the trip. And she thought the app, like she was just so grateful for everything. She was grateful for the doctors. It felt like it was scripted or something. She's like, this will be the last time I see the world. I was like, what? And she like thanked me for being like the last outsider that she got to talk to, and she thought that I was wonderful. And I was like, oh no. She was going into hospice care, and she like was about to die, and I dropped her off, but I didn't know she was about to die till the end of the conversation. And she was like, she was so nice. Okay, Uber trip, 10 to 20 bucks. Ambulance ride, more than 10 to 20 bucks. Ambulances are expensive, and a lot of people order Ubers instead of ambulances when they're having medical emergencies. Yeah, he luckily just like 5 miles from the hospital, but he went unconscious. He was not responsive. He ended up waking up at the end of the trip. I pull into the ER, and he falls out of the car, just onto the ground, out cold. I get out, I go to him, I'm ready to help him, but I'm like, wait, I'm literally at the hospital. So I just run inside, I grab a security guard and ask him to help me get this guy inside. And he says, no, you can go talk to the front desk. And I'm like, okay, but I have to go through security. I'm like, no, I'm not going through security. So I go around a metal detector to the front desk, and I'm like, hey, there's a guy, he's collapsed in your parking lot. Can you come help me? And she's like, is he like your relative? I'm like, no, he's an Uber passenger. I don't know him. She's like, he's outside right now. I'm like, yes, he's out. He just like hit his head on the ground. Can you come help me? And so, yeah, I get like 3 nurses to come out. They get him in a wheelchair. They wheel him inside. I never see him again. I had driven like an hour to get to my starting point. I did this one trip, and then I just went offline on the app and haven't Ubered since. It's not because of this trip. I had taken people to the hospital before, but it was when I was like on the verge of, I was like, oh, should I quit Uber? Should I do this again? I'm like, all right, I have some free time. I'm gonna go I'll just do it, knock out a couple easy trips. First trip I get, I have to speed a guy to the hospital. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good, I'm going home. I made $7 from that trip. He did not tip me. A lot of other people just want to get to where they're going really fast. One guy was just going to the club and he wanted to be there first. Another guy was late for a lot of late people for their flights. They told me to drive as fast as I physically can. Is that safe? No, you shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. But I did every time, and it was very fun. I was the absolute safest driver ever with people unless they special requested me to not be safe. Now, I would never take requests like this from drunk people who just want to feel a fast car because, well, they're gonna puke. What I quickly learned is you have to set boundaries as an Uber driver, because people will request everything of you. They will request everything they will request of you. Now, what I learned from talking to other drivers and other people is my personal boundaries were much more lenient than the average driver. I would allow open canisters of alcohol. I would allow vaping if I liked the flavor. So they'd be like, hey, can I vape in here? And I'm like, what flavor is it? I wouldn't allow cigarettes or weed to be smoked. What I definitely shouldn't have done was allow more. So this is a 5-seater, 3 in the back, 2 in the front. Sometimes there were 6 or 7 people in this car. These are normally just a bunch of college students. The nice thing is they would tip me well. I would just drive very slowly. Luckily, the windows are tinted, and I would be careful to make sure I was never pulled over with an Uber passenger. A lot of people also ask, oh, could you stop here? Oh, could you let me like pick up some cigarettes at this station, whatever. I honestly would let people add on whatever stops they wanted for free. Now there is a risk, there's a literal security risk to this, being that, well, if it's not in the app, you could get in trouble for taking someone to an unauthorized location, or it could be a setup to steal your car or kill you or whatever if they want you to go to an address that's not in the app. But they could also just put an address in the app that's dangerous. So I based safety on the individual scenario and not over whether it's on the app or not. And what I got in return was very happy passengers, because I would take an extra 8 minutes so they could go into the store, grab something, whatever. And in return, they would tip me very well, because 90% of the time they'd say, oh, you're the first like driver who actually let me do that. And I'm like, why are you asking? Just clearly they're not letting you, just add it to whatever. You're welcome. Thank you for the extra money. I was consistently doing just special favor. That doesn't sound right. I refused the sexual favors, which yes, was asked of me. A lot of guys asked for my number. I would say maybe 2 girls asked for my number, but sadly, the feeling just wasn't mutual. Were there passengers that I wish I could have propositioned? Yes, of course. But I knew that the situation and setting was not appropriate. I will say there was one girl who was like, had a great conversation. Favorite person to talk to, didn't look terrible. And I would always open the door. So I actually did give a lot of people, not literally, but I would give people my contact information if they asked, if I wanted to. I had like extra phone numbers. So like if a guy just wanted to be friends, or if he wanted YouTube advice, yeah, I would just give him some sort of contact. I did that for maybe 20, 25 passengers. And so I would open the opportunity. But at the end of this trip, the girl goes, you know who you would get along with so well? And I was like, who's that? My boyfriend. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, you guys are like scarily alike. I was like, okay, great. She's like, no, like you would be great friends. I was like, okay, I get it. Thank you for rubbing it in. Not really. I just thought it was actually pretty funny. I had so much fun during all these conversations. I mean, basically I would put on my YouTuber-y personality in the car. So I would just like back to back, just be trying to make as many jokes as possible. I was just like maximum humor and fun. However, there was one passenger, I made her laugh so hard that she urinated on my seat. But I guess that's a good segue into vomit. I won't show any vomit if you don't like seeing it, but yeah, there were a couple sick passengers. Some were drunk, some were not. I didn't mind if someone was sick. They don't want to be sick in the car. I would drive as carefully as possible if they seemed drunk or tipsy. However, sometimes you just can't stop it. But the issue was they wouldn't tell me when they're feeling sick. Like I started asking up front, like just let me, if you feel sick, it's fine. It's no big deal. Just please let me know. I have vomit. I told like 50 people, just so you know, I have a vomit bag if you need it. And they just thought it was funny. But I did not ask all the right people, because yeah, sometimes they would just not say anything. And then very last second, starts happening. They can't figure out how to open the door in the car. Luckily, they like get out the window, whatever. It happens. At first, I thought it would be a huge nuisance to me if people were sick in the car. But no, I actually just felt bad for them because they didn't want to be sick in the car. One of the girls, she pukes out the door. She starts crying and she hands me a bunch of cash and just leaves. Other passengers just smelled really, really bad. Like I could tell they had not showered in days or weeks. And the crazy thing is, I was picking up construction workers in the middle of the summer at the end of hot 8-hour work days that they were doing. And they left no mess, and they were completely, like they smelled totally, maybe there was a bit of a mud smell if they had some mud on their shoes, but they somehow were able to leave the car spotless in spite of being in full work equipment. But then these other people would just clearly have just rolled out of bed, and they are just disgusting. It's actually crazy how nasty a person can be. It made me feel better about my hygiene. Now, there's a lot of disabled passengers being physically and mentally disabled.
I guess Mom will get in the front seat.
Okay, sure. I can adjust it.
Were you late?
What's that? Was I late?
What I said?
No.
Mom, other side.
You want to take the front seat?
Other side.
I mean, it's up there.
Other side. Open. What kind of car is this?
Tesla Model 3.
OM Jizzle. Alright, dude, whatever. You need to vacate the premises. It's time for you to go. It's time for you to get out. Get the fuck out. We're in a Tesla with an 11-year-old. Is this your father's car?
This is
No,
probably
it's my
where
car.
you turn.
It's who?
It's
This is
mine.
where-
It's what?
That's mine.
This is it.
With what money?
It's YouTube money.
And turn right here.
Right? Are you sure it's not left down here?
Down here. Turn
It
right.
said right.
And now, past that mailbox, turn left.
You put the wrong address.
But I want to know where it
Nobody
says
put the
Tesla.
wrong address. It
What's
just,
Where does it say Tesla?
I mean, it's on the steering wheel. I don't know. Right
Mom,
here?
this is a Tesla.
But how do you know?
Because I know. It's the new hotness. Okay, let's get out of this
Yeah.
hotness.
So just press the button, the higher up button.
I'm just gonna
You see it right here?
Let's do this.
Them having to live with those issues on the daily basis, yes, it is harder than me having to deal with them for 20 minutes. But I didn't ask to have to deal with it either. I guess I did ask by being an Uber driver. I would say the only time someone was purposely mean was like, for some reason, some of them thought that I was getting paid more if it takes me longer to complete the trip. I'm like, no, I get paid per trip. I want to finish it as quickly as you want to get out of this car or whatever. So like one guy, it was game night at UNC, so it's like crazy busy. In fact, some of the trips took so long, like we were sitting there for so long that I would say 50% of the passengers some nights would just get out of the car and walk the rest of the way because it was so busy. In fact, I would start the trip with these passengers and I would just say, just so you know, it's probably going to be faster if you walk. If you want to cancel the trip, you can. And they're like, oh, okay. And some of them actually did. And I still got paid for it, but I didn't have to drive them and they actually did get there faster. But yeah, one guy who was like, you're taking so long, and he called me like 3 times, and I'm like, I'm not trying to take long. Look at Google Maps and see how long the traffic says it's gonna take. That's how long I'm gonna take. So I end up getting stuck for over 30 minutes trying to drive a mile because he's in the absolute worst spot possible and he refuses to walk to where it's easier to get to me. And then right as I'm about to get to him, I cancel the trip and just drive past him and keep going. So yes, that was petty, but I thought it was funny. Anyway, back to the disabled population. Now, I thought it was really fun when I got blind passengers, and that's because I had just so happened to get in my YouTube recommended blind channels, like people that are blind talking about their experiences, and a lot of them made videos on Ubering, and they're like, here's what I wish my Uber driver would do, and I became like the expert in Ubering blind people. It was pretty common sense stuff, but I just thought that was fun, that they were satisfied and felt like welcomed in the car. Now, there were 2 things keeping me coming back. One was the incredible tips. I was consistently racking up $20 to $30 tips. Like there was a point where every night I knew I was going to get at least one $20 tip. There were some nights where I was getting over $100 in tips. But the other thing that kept me coming back was my ego getting stroked, because every single day, so many of the passengers would say, you were the best Uber driver I've ever had. And I'm like, really? Like, did you say that? They're like, no, I don't tell anyone this. You're genuinely the best driver. And I'm like, okay. And it felt pretty good. I was like, I would ask why. And they just thought that I was okay, this is crazy. They thought that I was very charismatic and funny. And I was like, what? Like, honestly, the best cure for my social anxiety was just being told over and over how good I am with social skills. I was like, that's insane. There's no way you're being honest to me. Now, if someone just says it off randomly, I'm like, all right, I don't believe them. But once it was told to me 100 or 200 or 250 times that I am that I'm the best driver they've had, all right, you know what? I think I'm going to start just accepting this as true. And this car was a total wingman with this. People love the Tesla. It's funny because on YouTube, if I mention Tesla, it's 80% negative comments about Tesla. But every single person, even Tesla haters that got in this car, absolutely loved it by the end. I would do full self-driving trips. I wouldn't touch the steering wheel at all. They all loved it, except for a few people. I noticed that men love full self-driving, women hate full self-driving, because they'd be like, does this car drive itself? And I'd say, yes. Do you want me to turn it on? And the guy would be like, are you crazy? Of course I do. What have you been waiting for? And then if I ask a woman if she wants me to turn it on, she'd go, are you crazy? Why would I possibly want that? So it was so funny because it was like 50-50 love and hate full self-driving in the car. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. The drunk passengers were interesting. The biggest thing I noticed is they were scared of being an annoying drunk passenger, and so the drunker they were, the more nervous they were, and the more they would apologize, like, I'm sorry for being so drunk, whatever. And I was like, I genuinely don't mind. You're not doing anything. I'm also glad you're Ubering and not driving, because it was a very weird mixture of things going on, because I'm Ubering people and I have to focus on the conversation and their requests. I have to focus on driving safely, and when I'm out 2 a.m. on Fridays, I have to watch out for drunk drivers. Like, I was consistently not literally running into, but encountering drunk drivers on a usual basis. I felt like Mario Kart, like, so I'm trying to like avoid drunk drivers while taking drunk passengers in the middle of the night. Very interesting. I've never consumed so many energy drinks in my life. It was every day. I know some people drink energy drinks every day, but I personally never consume caffeine. But when Ubering, every day I was going through 1 or 2 energy drinks to keep myself as alert as possible, because there was a lot kind of going on at once. A lot of people wouldn't wear seatbelts, which is weird. It's kind of inevitable. I'm going to get cut off eventually, and I'm going to have to slam on brakes. And a lot of people's craniums went into the back of my seat. It's like the way sorry about that. Because they wouldn't put their gosh darn seatbelt on. Lots of people were loud. Lots of people would argue.
You had that 7th grader who was having sex and didn't realize it was you want her to have her baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Your entire vote for our country.
Kelly, you know what? You're a fucking bitch. I am not stupid. I make almost $300,000 a year. How much do you make?
Nothing. I make nothing.
Okay, so you're talking to me
nothing.
like I'm fucking stupid. I'm not stupid. Just because you have become this Christian conservative crazy person, we make fun of you, how you act, because you are so simple-minded.
No,
that's all you want to talk about. All you do is tell us how stupid we are, and we do talk about how you talk down to us.
I'm simple-minded, and you all make fun of me. Thank you.
We don't make fun of you. That was not the right term, but we.
Nope. You make fun of me, and I'm simple-minded.
You're not. How do I get out of this?
Yes, the higher up button, you just hold it and
I'm
push the door.
simple-minded, and you don't make fun of me.
The way you're talking to me is like I'm a fucking idiot, so.
And there's a second button, if you see it a little higher, with a little light. Yeah, just hold that and push the
simple-minded,
door
and y'all make fun of me. But thank you. Thank you.
Kelly, I didn't mean it like that, but whatever.
No.
How do I open? I can't get the door.
Stephanie, y'all have all made fun of me for
We just joke.
Ever.
We just joke because you don't want to talk about anything
you
else.
all have made fun of me forever,
We
and
love
I'm
you,
glad
and
you.
we are
I'm
here.
glad you made it clear.
We love you, and we
No,
are
I'm
here
glad
for you.
you-
But all you want to do is talk about politics and
I
tell
don't.
us that
I
we're
don't.
stupid. You talk about it all the time. You tell us we're
You're
stupid.
shut
You
the
just
door,
told me
please.
how to-
Man, I should never slam my door. It's not your car.
And that's what's amazing is they think that I care about influencing their opinions, and I don't.
I think politics is a better sober topic. Nope, yes, no. And there were definitely passengers consistently who were being coerced from, like, women being coerced from bars with a guy, whatever. And I was like, what do I do about this? Like, some of these were essentially unconscious women. And I had some arguments about this with other people on, like, what would you do in this situation? They're like, well, I would call the police, whatever. I ended up reporting a few trips to the police. Some said they'd look into it. Some were like, well, there doesn't sound to be any crime being committed. But there were other trips like that where it would be an essentially unconscious girl who didn't seem to know the people she was with. And, like, one guy literally carried the woman out of my car just up to an apartment. I was like, okay, maybe it's her apartment. I don't know. Lots of people would call Ubers for other people. One was pretty funny, that being that this was this super drunk woman with me, and her husband, I don't know if it was boyfriend or who called, but someone calls her that she lives with, and he's like, are you driving right now? She's like, no, I'm not driving. I'm in an Uber. He's like, no, you are not. I know what you're doing. You're driving right now. She's like, I'm not driving. I'm in an Uber. He's like, I can hear the car. You're driving right now. If you're really in an Uber, give the driver your phone. And so she gave me the phone. I was like, hello, it's the Uber driver. And he's like, oh, thank God. They're also just super inebriated people. Some of which, again, were just having medical issues, and I had to take them to the hospital. But others were just very drunk, and their friend wanted them to go home. So it became my duty to get them home. And they were like, can you make sure, can you help her to her front door and get her inside? I'm like, I guess. Are you going to tip me? I didn't say that. But 4 a.m. and I can't find their house. They want to go super far because they want to go to the other side of the city, and we're not even in the city yet. They typed in the wrong address. So it turns out at 4 a.m., I was in one of their neighbors' driveways, like flashing the lights. So eventually I figured it out. I go to the right house, pick them up, and I'm not including a lot of this footage in the video because they were essentially, this would be adult content if I included what they were doing in the back of the car. Now, one of the guys was chill, but the super drunk friend ends up just giving me crumpled up cash. And he's like, can you drop us all off individually? And then they expected me to drive them all the way back across town. And I was like, oh, I take the cash, I count it. It's like $40. And I'm like, that's pretty good. The thing is, I have to drive back. I'm essentially like, do I put up with these really annoying guys, or do I just kick them all out at the first stop?
No cap. Can you pull up like 20 foot and let me pee? I'm not even kidding you.
Yeah, that's fine. What, right here maybe?
Man, you tell me, bro. I don't give a fuck. I'll piss in the middle of the damn street. I'm a redneck.
A little bit of cover here. So.
That's fine, right here, right?
The friend I'm dropping off last is the super annoying drunk guy. So all four crammed in the back of the seats. The last guy ends up moving to the front seats once everyone else is dropped off, but he completely blacks out during this trip. Yeah, no problem. Have a good one.
Will. I'm at my house. He's gonna drop you off, all right? Alright. Get him back to your Bun Lake house. Go straight out of here, turn right, turn left, and go straight.
Alright, sounds good. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yep. What's up? You're by far not the worst. And when I arrive at the house, he climbs back into the vehicle and is talking to me more. And I'm like, what is he saying? Davis told me to just drive you back here. Oh, is this the wrong house?
Yeah.
He said the one with the 2 trucks. I guess every house has trucks here. But I can't stress enough how much the far majority of people were great. Did I accompany a few people on drug deals? Maybe. Did I assist people in human trafficking? Maybe. And so eventually, over the months of Ubering, I became a little bit more strict. From open canisters of alcohol to only closed canisters of alcohol to no alcohol. And then people would complain and whine and cry over it. And I'd get fewer tips out of them. And eventually, after 350 5-star trips, someone gave me 3 stars. And I don't know who it was, but it permanently ruined my perfect 5-star rating to a 4.99, and I was actually pissed at the end of that day. I was so frustrated because I was like, I am bending over and doing everything for these people, and some motherfucker gave me a 1. I was actually like, I very rarely get angry, but I was so fed up with Uber and so exhausted that I actually just lost it when I saw a 3-star trip on my account. Does it matter? No. The only difference is people would get in the car and be like, oh my God, I've never been with a 5-star driver before. That's so cool. And then it's ruined by some, I don't know who it was. When you give a low rating, you can give a reason. Cleanliness, friendliness, disrespectful, whatever. They didn't put a reason. They just gave me 3 stars and never said a word. So I don't know why that was. Maybe it was just a viewer who was like, oh, I hate go-herping. I'm going to give him a bad rating. A lot of people treat their Uber drivers as their therapists, which I didn't mind. People are going through all sorts of like depression, suicidal, grief, everything, and they just dump it. People love trauma dumping in some Ubers. I didn't mind though. I would give advice sometimes, but I drove one girl and she went to her boyfriend's house to go hang out with him, and he was cheating on her. I was like, oh my God. There was another girl there at his apartment, and I guess he didn't know she was coming, so she spends like $15 on an Uber to go visit her boyfriend, and she calls another Uber back home, and I felt so bad. So awkward. There were so many awkward Ubers like that. Like, so many relationship issues, friends fighting, couples fighting. Oh God. I got everything. I just can't imagine. People with 5,000 Uber trips on their account, the stuff they must have been told and stuff. Like, I've forgotten a lot of it by now, I'm sure. And I was probably so tired a lot of these trips that I just wasn't even fully listening. Lots of angry people, because a lot of people are Ubering not out of choice, but because, well, they have to. Some people's cars would get disabled, like break down on the side of the road. And so I'd pick them up on the shoulder of the road and drive them back home or to the shop. A lot of people's cars got towed to the point there was one street where everyone thought they could park, but they couldn't. And so it just became a usual thing for me to pick people up at that street and drive to the tow yard. It was a super incredibly sketchy tow yard because this is 4 a.m. It's deep into the woods, pitch black building, doesn't even look open. So I had to literally start accompanying people on some of these trips. Do I have an obligation to do that? No, but I just thought it was fun to get in people's business. Honestly, it was just fun to involve myself. A lot of people left items in the car. One person, it was game night. The tickets were like $70 each. It was 5 tickets, a full family in my car. The husband leaves all 5 tickets in my car, and I call Uber, and I can't get Uber to give me the contact information of the guy. And I'm like, he needs the game tickets. Give me his phone number. And they're like, no, it's a security risk to give you his number. I'm like, you contact him. And they're like, no, we don't contact customers. I'm like, you can literally contact them. So they refuse to contact the customer, and they say if they're missing an item, they can call Uber and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. And I'm like, the game starts in 40 minutes. So I end up going into my Google timeline, finding the address I picked them up from, which was their house. I look up their house on White Pages. I find the owner of the house. I find the phone number. I call them, and they're related to the people with the tickets. So they give me the phone number of the ticket holder, and then we work together and I meet them to get them the tickets. I did this not because I had to, but because it just seemed like a fun little side quest, because I was bored and I was like, all right, Operation Get These Tickets Back to these people. And I did it, hoping for a good tip, and he gave me $15, which, yes, $15, that's a good tip. But also, I kind of saved the day. A group that was way more happy for my help, though, was college students. They're going to a party. I just knew that there was a massive duffel bag of alcohol in my trunk, and both me and the passenger forgot that the duffel bag was in my trunk. So I dropped them off at the party and I leave. And then about 30 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, I have all their alcohol. So I drive back to the party. It's like they actually saw, it's like God himself, Jesus was resurrected and came down from heaven. I don't know where Jesus is, came down from wherever he's chilling, walked into that party, and they were all just absolutely blessed by my presence because I had their duffel bag of alcohol. There was a lot of random stories, and a lot of these you can tell are good, but at the end of the day, it was exhausting. Ubering just for 4 to 6 hours would knock, I'd have to like take a nap after. I was so tired. Luckily, I'm a very confident driver, because you have to be a confident driver and a confident like human interactor. I have one down, I just had to work on the other one, and it did get better. But I was just done. I'd have to like take a bath, get some Epsom salts, get some bubble bath going, get a drink of my own. Like, I can't believe there's people that Uber every day. Every time I got in an Uber, I would be like, I downloaded the app. Should I start Ubering? And they'd all say yes. They were like, it's super fun, makes good money, try it out. And I was like, all right, eventually I did. But my conclusion is yes, I can do it. If I desperately need money and Uber's my only option, I'll be okay. I could do it full time. However, Uber drivers are built different. If you're an Uber driver and you're watching this, you're crazy. I don't know how you do this. I did 650 trips. A lot of you have done thousands of trips. Oh, that was rough. But I'm glad I did it. Very insanely fun life experience, and I learned so much about people. My social skills got so much better. I got my ego stroked because everyone thought I was funny. And at the end of the day, you could say I got lucky to an extent. Nobody assaulted me, nobody killed me, nobody threatened me, nobody robbed me. 99% of people, very nice people, and that was great to know. It made me feel a lot better just walking around town being like, I'm glad that I got a sample of these people, and they're all great for the most part. Everyone's looking out for each other a lot more than I realized, and everyone's willing to help a lot more than I realized, so that was cool. But Uber is simply not for me. Recording this video kind of made me want to Uber again, but I don't think I will. I don't know. If I do, I'll let you know. So that'll be it. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.